So you know that story of Noah? The story with that cute ark with the different animals, two of each kind on it. They send out a dove. Yeah, that story is really found throughout the entire Bible. What's up, everybody? My name is Colin. I want to welcome you back to another another video coming out of this new YouTube channel, Nicaea 3. Today we're going to be looking specifically at the typology of one of the most crucial and well-known stories in the Old Testament, that being the story of Noah and the Great Flood. Now, of course, this story in its own context is a very, very prominent story coming towards the beginning of Genesis. The story where Noah and his wife and then his 3 sons and their 3 wives, so 8 of them total, end up going on building this ark throughout his life. Then they end up going when this massive flood comes, they end up finding themselves in the ark. God sends 2 of each animal to be on the ark, and therefore eventually they are the ones saved from this great flood. Then eventually, obviously, Noah sends out this dove. It goes and finds land, comes back and tells Noah, and then God essentially starts over again with humanity and these 8 people who were preserved. Now, this story in and of itself is fascinating, and there's so much to dig out of it. What I really want to do in this video, in this just short little typology video, is look at the places where we can trace the story of Noah's Ark, both before this point in the Bible and after as well, at multiple different points. So let's start from the very beginning. I'll often ask whenever I'm talking about this story, do you believe that this is the first point in the Bible where Noah's Ark is found? And you get various answers to that, right? But I would argue, and I would say just traditional biblical understanding would argue, that Noah's Ark is not actually the first ark in the Bible. Rather, the first ark in the Bible comes straight out of Genesis 1, where the earth itself, being the type for the ark, is actually drawn out of the chaos of the waters. And from that, now in ancient Hebrew mind, in ancient Hebrew thought, waters were chaotic. So the earth itself is this ark drawn out of the chaos of creation, wherein people found solitude, rest, in a habitable land. Okay, so the earth itself is actually the first ark in the Bible. Then we've got Noah's Ark, where God obviously redeems humanity and creation specifically, where God is saying that through this great flood, he's redeeming all of creation through this and preserving that which was good in his creation. Okay. Now, after this comes another story of an ark, but this particular time, it's going to look a little different. It's a little smaller. This is where later on in the scriptures, we see the story of the ark of Moses, okay, where Moses is placed in a basket. Now, the Hebrew word here used for Moses' basket is actually the same word used for Noah's Ark in the Hebrew scriptures or in the Tanakh. And so Moses' basket is placed in a river where what happens? He's delivered through the water, okay? And when he's delivered through the water, he is the one then who ultimately goes on to be the one through whom God works to deliver Israel. So the one who delivers Israel from slavery in Egypt is first himself delivered through water in a basket, which is again a type for the ark. Okay. Now, fast forward even further in Scripture, we see another even more prominent form of this occurring in the Gospels. Specifically, we see this in the Gospel of St. Matthew and the Gospel of St. Luke. But think about this. What is Jesus delivered in? A trough. And what does a trough ultimately look like? It looks like the basket of Moses, or an ark. And Jesus here is delivered through the waters, but this time it's the waters of childbearing, the waters of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And Jesus goes through those waters and then is delivered into the world. So just as God initially brought creation out of this chaotic water with the earth, then God brought creation in humanity. He redeemed them through the flood in Noah's time and brought creation, he redeemed creation through this. Then he redeemed Israel through the one who would redeem Israel through the water in Moses with his basket. And then we see Jesus ultimately delivered through the childbearing waters of his mother into the earth in a trough or a manger or an ark, where he then goes on to obviously redeem all of humanity. Then there is one other ark that comes up later in the Bible, this namely being the church, the bark of St. Peter. And we think of it this way, right? So the church, so traditionally if you go into a great old cathedral or just a traditional church, the proper name for where the congregants sit is actually the nave, which in Latin is novice, meaning ship. Okay? And how do you get into the novice or the nave of the church? Well, first, traditionally, you passed from the west past a baptismal font, which, note this, traditionally baptismal fonts are 8-sided or they're octagonal. Why is that? Because the 8 sides represent a few things. They represent the 8th day, so the new creation. They also represent the 8 people who were on Noah's Ark. And then you pass through the baptismal waters into the nave where you become a member of God's family and you are saved in the Ark of the church. So there you have it. You see the Ark traced throughout the entirety of Scripture in these beautiful ways. And that really gives us a lot to chew on as we wrestle with how the whole Bible fits together as one beautiful narrative. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, check back in for more, some of my older content, some of my shorts. But I really look forward to hopefully getting to make more of these and just exploring with you the beauty and wonder of God's creation and of His ongoing and ever beautiful story. With that said, God bless, and I hope you have a blessed one. Take care.